Planet Vero Studios, brought to you by Evergreen Media, creating cohesive marketing campaigns. Evergreen Media in Vero Beach.
Hello, everyone. I am Julie, and welcome back to Growing Old Fearlessly. Today, we're going to be talking about retirement planning. And I found a quote from Jonathan Clements. He's the author of How to Think About Money. And he said, retirement is like a long vacation in Las Vegas. The goal is to enjoy it to the fullest, but not so fully that you run out of money. So to talk a little bit further about this, I have a guest here in the studio, Sean Murphy.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Sean. I am so glad you're here. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me on the podcast today. So my name is Sean Murphy. I'm a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, and I've got my own practice. I've been in the industry in financial services for 17 years now. So, as a licensed advisor, I work in both sides of the portfolio, both offensive and defensive strategies regarding retirement, legacy planning, estate planning, education planning, etc., and just overall financial wellness.
Fantastic. So when we were talking a couple days ago, you said that there are 6 major hiccups, is what you call them, that people can make when they're planning on retirement. 6 different things. And just to brush on them really quickly, it was longevity, market volatility, inflation and taxes, healthcare, long-term care, and legacy. Mm-hmm. So out of all of those 6, since we're just starting the podcast and we want to start out strong, which one do you feel is like the number one to talk about right now?
So, Julie, I feel as though all 6 are very important and need to be addressed. You can't just pick out one and say that, hey, this is the most important area that we need to put all our focus on. But I feel as though education-wise, I think that the area where most people would benefit is in regard to long-term care. So long-term care planning specifically can be a real hindrance to people's overall retirement plan.
Right, and that's because of the expense of that long-term care. And you had mentioned 3 different, I think 3. You mentioned the cost of a nursing home, and here in our area, if for a nursing home, it's like $342. And this is just a quote, so don't hold me to it. And then for an assisted living facility, we're looking at approximately $4,600 a month and $24 an hour for home health care. And that I had to pay that with my dad when my dad was at his home, and I had to get the nurses and the home health aides to come in. So how do people come up with this money? That's
a good question. So for many folks, they feel as though, I'll just self-insure whatever assets I have left. I'll use that. But in many cases, it simply doesn't provide enough for a long-term care event. The average long-term care event is just over 2 years. It can be longer depending on the person's individual conditions. So in order to plan for that, for a lot of people, they end up with some sort of risk management product, such as long-term care insurance, or there are also some life insurance products that do have some long-term care features that can be accessed in the event of one of those events.
So let's put this into perspective for somebody who is already like in the 40s and 50s. How do we prepare for a long-term event like this?
Yeah, so in our overall approach to planning, if we feel as though that long-term care is an area that needs to be addressed, we take a peek at the average cost of care for that particular area, whether that's Florida specific or their particular zip code. We can narrow it down that way, and determine what the average cost of care is. And then from there, we put together, a plan based on their health and their budget that would best suit them, right? So we, as I'd mentioned, that can be in a standalone long-term care type product, or it could be part of their life insurance portfolio as well as an additional rider, right? So in regard to that, typically we will, look for, let's say the average cost is $4,600 per month for assisted living. We want to make sure that could be, that's just an average, right? There are facilities that are going to be less expensive. There's going to be facilities that are going to be significantly more expensive. So we typically will look at a monthly amount, in regard, say $6,000-$7,000 a month of care, and then we'll look at some different plans regarding is that a 3-year plan or a 6-year plan, et cetera. And then we take into consideration the Medicare aspect of it. So Medicare does typically cover a chunk, but it's a very small amount. It's typically the first 100 days of care, and then after that, a standalone product is needed unless somebody's got a big bag of cash that they can access, right?
If
and for many folks, they don't have
If anybody
that.
has one of those, I want it. Please send it my way.
Yeah, we've got the address. Just have them drop it at the door, right?
Exactly. We're here at Evergreen Media. Just drop off a bag of cash. I remember when I was in my 30s and my ex-husband and I were talking to a financial planner. And, at the time, I didn't think of it because I thought I was going to last forever. And, but now when I see my dad and the expenses that come with that, now I start worrying about what should I be doing? Did I already do it? Did I miss the boat? What can be, am I too late?
And the answer to that question is no, right? So no, you're not too late to the game. When it comes to these sort of products, oftentimes they are health underwritten, right? So we need to make sure that the individual qualifies. So, relatively healthy individuals, and then from there, it all starts with a conversation. So the earlier that you start the plan, typically the less expensive the premium, right? But we have plans to fit everyone's budget, right? And again, there are some expenses that will be covered by Social Security and other retirement assets that you can use to offset the cost of long-term care. I hope you never have a long-term care event, but it's important that we do have that piece in place, so it doesn't affect, say, your legacy that you want to leave to your children or your grandchildren, or you don't end up running out of money in the event of one of these events coming along.
Which that takes us to another one of the hiccups that you had mentioned, and it was legacy. And it was, you want to leave something to your children or to your grandchildren, for that matter, and you don't want to run out of money. Is there a percentage of, or do you have any numbers like for people that actually they run out of money?
I don't have those particular numbers offhand, right? I can't speak to the specifics of that. But in terms of, most individuals when they're retired, they're on a fixed income, they're on a fixed budget, unless they still own a business and get some sort of distribution from that. So it's important that we plan in regard to their own lifestyle. The biggest thing is let's take care of the fixed expenses first, and make sure that that's taken care of no matter what. And we can project that out over, a period of time, 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, however long that will be for that particular individual based on when they retire. That we put plans in place and start taking distributions off of those assets that they have on a consistent basis with a focus on taxes, right? That's another big concern for many folks is the tax aspect of it.
Right. So that takes us to another one of the hiccups, and it was inflation and taxes. And how do you plan for that? Yeah.
So, I don't know if you know this, but the largest bill you're going to pay in your lifetime is going to be your tax bill, right? And I hate to tell that to folks, but it's very true. And for most individuals, most Americans, will typically have an employer-sponsored retirement plan. be that a 401k or a pension, and typically those particular accounts are very tax heavy in the future. So you save money, up front on an employer sponsored 401k type plan, but Uncle Sam's going to ultimately get it in the end, right? So it's important that we save enough during your working years to compensate for that, but also that you have some other retirement vehicles that are tax favored, right? And there's other strategies that you can save that are tax favorable during retirement that can come out tax free, such as say a Roth IRA or Roth 401k or some other risk-based products. Income from say a life insurance distribution typically is tax free as well. So it's about having different buckets in place that we can draw down based on market conditions, environment, and on a consistent basis, while keeping in mind the tax implications of that.
Right. Something very important that you mentioned right before we started the podcast was, and I'll go back to the long-term care, where people thought, oh, well, I'll have Medicare pay for it. Well, you just said it. Medicare only pays for about 100 days of care, which I also found out with my dad. And then other people will say, well, Medicaid will cover it.
Right.
And you said what your answer was.
Yeah, so Medicaid's a great program, right? But for many Americans, they simply don't qualify for that, and they can't necessarily always gift the assets to family. And the reason being is Medicaid has a look-back period, right? And so most people don't have the foresight to say, hey, I'm going to have a long-term care event in the next, say, 5 years. I need to make sure that I don't have any assets to show, so I do qualify for Medicaid. So for many folks, Medicaid just simply isn't an option. And also, quite a few of the facilities don't accept Medicaid, right?
Correct.
And I know...
so you can't trick the government into thinking that you have no money, is what you're saying,
correct.
Right?
They know. They know. That's right.
And they have known all along. So with this, we're going to pause for a few minutes, and we'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, I'm Ralph Winook with Dale Sorensen Real Estate and ResidentialRalph.com. When you're interested in buying or selling a home, contact me. As your agent, I will work nonstop to ensure that your buying or selling experience is smooth and stress-free. I will be there for you at every stage of the process to answer your questions and help you make an informed decision. So, why wait? Contact me, Ralph Winook, and schedule a consultation with me today. Visit ResidentialRalph.com. That's right, ResidentialRalph.com.
Revive Vero Beach, located next to Anytime Fitness on Oslo Road and 27th Avenue, has everything you need to look and feel your best, including hormone replacement therapy, stem cell therapy, sexual wellness, weight loss, laser aesthetics, hair, tattoo, and skin spot removal, Botox and fillers, cryotherapy, comprehensive blood work, and everybody's favorite ozone and IV therapy. Refresh, renew, and revitalize yourself at Revive today. Call 772-492-6607. A member of the iTex trading community. Your iTex dollars are welcome.
For those tired of staring at laundry as it piles up, the answer is usually putting it off as long as possible. For most, there's not just another minute to squeeze into a day to get the laundry done. Sunshine Laundries can help. This is Tom Rhodes, owner of Sunshine Laundries, with a reminder that 5 of our locations offer drop-off service. We'll wash, dry, and fold. For locations and hours, we're at sunshinelaundries.com, and with laundromats all along the Treasure Coast.
Advertising is essential. You've got to make people aware that you're there. We can do that with a cohesive marketing campaign from Evergreen Media. Based on your business goals, we'll create a mix of digital advertising on social media sites like Facebook, video advertising on streaming sites like Hulu and Paramount Plus, and supplement them with local TV and radio ads. Build awareness, educate, and inform the public with a cohesive marketing campaign by Evergreen Media. Check out egreenmedia.com or search online for Evergreen Media in Vero Beach.
Welcome back to Growing Old Fearlessly. Again, I am Julie, and we are here talking about retirement planning. But before we go back to my guest, I wanted to thank our sponsors. Number one, Evergreen Media. This is their studio. You want to have your own show? Call them. You can reach out to them through egreenmedia.com. Also wanted to thank Residential Ralph. He is Ralph Winook with Dale Sorensen Real Estate. If you want to buy or sell a home, give Ralph a call. He is definitely the expert in all of your real estate needs, and you can reach him through residentialralph.com. So we are going to talk again to Sean Murphy, who is here in the studio with us today. And we've been talking about retirement planning and the most common hiccups that happen to people or biggest risks to the retirement. And during our break, we were talking about the one that is number one on this list, and it's longevity. And how does that affect the retirement?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. So, for many folks, people are living longer than ever before. And now there's a lot of factors due to that, right? Whether it's, lifestyle choices or modern medicine, people addressing medical concerns earlier. And as a result of that, we need a plan for that. When people retire, it's about having, a stable income up until, late into their 90s, right? My grandmother just passed away about 6 weeks ago. She was 98 years old, right? So
Wow.
she lived a very full life. 67% of men and 75% of women over the age of 70 will be alive another 10 years, right? So that's one stat I wanted to share. And then 20% of those women and 34% of those, 20% of those men and 34% of those women will live into their 90s, right? So it's important that we address the concerns of retirement planning due to longevity, right? And making sure that we don't outlive our money.
Well, I have to tell you one thing. I come from a family of people who live well into their 90s. So I don't know. I'm going to have to, I know that I've been planning. I do work with someone and I have planned, but I'm going to have to review everything and make sure that I have that long-term care taken care of.
Yeah, long-term care is certainly an important area that needs to be addressed for sure. When people think about retirement and retirement expenses, I tend to think of it as three different phases, right? Mm-hmm. There's typically three different phases to an individual's retirement. Right. They're what we like to call, the go-go years, the slow-go years, and then the no-go years.
So tell us first, what are the go-go years?
Absolutely. So your go-go years, those are typically the earlier years of retirement. You're going and you're going. Typically, for most individuals, they retire, they want to do some fun stuff. They've been working their butts off their whole life, and they want to check off some of those bucket list items. Mm-hmm. So typically for most people, they end up doing some traveling. They may have children that are getting married, so there's the expense associated with that, in terms of paying for weddings and education and those sorts of things.
And they're getting grandkids and they're playing with the grandkids,
that's
right?
They've got kids and grandkids, and those are typically the earlier years of retirement, the go-go years. And for most individuals, their expenses tend to be a little bit higher during those earlier years of retirement. And that's due to the discretionary type expenses, not necessarily their fixed expenses. Their fixed expenses remain pretty constant during the go-go years. Again, as long as the individual is healthy. Uh-huh. So those are the go-go years. The slow-go years tend to come a little bit after the go-go years. They've gotten that travel out of their system. They typically, individuals start to develop some health issues. They're getting older. They're not as active as they once were. So the slow-go years, they tend to be spending more time at home, and the expense tends to decrease a little bit during those particular slow-go years. And then, the no-go years are the long-term care type events, right? Those tends to be at the end of one's life.
Right. And sometimes the slow-go years, you had mentioned, either you can bypass the slow-go years, or the slow-go years can be really, really quick, which, as I mentioned, kind of happened to my dad. Yeah. Before my mom passed, they were doing things together, and she was his primary caretaker. And when she got ill and she passed very quickly, then all of a sudden my dad had his logo years. But then he had a few medical events that quickly pushed him into the no-goes.
Yeah.
And describe us a little bit more about the no-goes.
Yeah, so in regards to the no-go years, typically people need additional assistance. So, the no-go years, when you're married and your spouse is still alive, a spouse can certainly help out as to their level of skill or particular situation. But then the surviving spouse is the one who typically has the biggest need for, a long-term care type event, right? So, I think about my own parents. My mother and father were married a very long time. My mother got sick and passed away due to cancer, and it was relatively quick. It was less than a year. And then I look at my father, who's now in his mid to late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He's all alone. He's living by himself. He has some major health concerns, and he's certainly on the edge, if you will, from going from necessarily the slow go into the no go. And often takes one diagnosis or one slip and fall or a medical event that can quickly move someone, even totally bypassing the slow go years and just go straight from go to no go, right?
Right.
And it's important that that we plan accordingly in regards to short, mid, and long-term planning throughout retirement, and be able to withdraw and take distributions from those assets throughout those periods.
Okay. One of the other risks that you had mentioned was healthcare. So I know that healthcare has the price, the fees that we pay for healthcare have risen tremendously. What do you see in that for retirement? Like, how do you plan for that?
Yeah, I think that healthcare costs are definitely a fixed expense, right? In terms of Medicare and Medicare supplement, prescription drug plans, those are areas that are definitely a point of concern and contention. I think that it's important that we budget for that appropriately, and then that you revisit those plans on an annual basis, right?
Right, and that's kind of hard to. I'm putting it into my own perspective. Is that you don't qualify for Medicare until you're 62, I think, and so if you're not there yet. And a lot of people don't even retire
right
before then. So how I'm almost feeling like these last 10 years are going to be critical.
They are.
To get to that point.
Yeah. So I mean, as you start to get closer to retirement, don't worry. There will be agents that will be reaching out to you, right? That have lists, names, and numbers of those that are approaching retirement age.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing in regards to Medicare is, those plans are, they're all run by the federal government. So whether you've got, your Part B care with one carrier or another, the plans are very, very similar, and they're dictated. The only difference can typically be pricing.
Okay. Well, I think that we have talked about a lot of information here today, and we could continue talking because, hey, we didn't even touch the market. But we only have about a minute left of the show. So I want to make sure that everybody knows how to reach you if they want any more information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. So the best way to reach me is either by phone, or you can also go to my website and set an appointment to meet with me either in person or virtually. That's one of the great things with technology these days is I can meet with people anywhere, anytime. So the best way to reach me is through my cell phone, which is 561-402-2750. Or you can also go to my website, which is Sean, SEAN, Murphy, MURPHY, that's one word, .nm.com. So again, Sean Murphy, one word, N as in Nancy, M as in Mike.com.
Thank you, Sean. And I leave everybody with the words from M.K. Sani. Retire from work, but not from life.
I like it.
Have a great week. See you, everybody, next week.
Thank you,
Bye.
Julie.